Well, good morning. Sunday morning, here I am, having another little rent. Obviously, too much of that vodka first thing in the morning. Right, want to speak to you today about what's happening with the state pension. Now, we've had Tony Blair, an ex-MP, an ex-Prime Minister, coming out and saying this is not sustainable. We need to scrap the state pension. Now we've had Rachel Reeves jump on the same bandwagon, and she's making rumours about scrapping the state pension. Well, let me tell you this. The state pension is unsustainable in its present form. If you pay 9-10% in per month, the average worker pays in about £175. Even with 5% interest each year, it comes to about, after 36 years, because it's now 67 before you can take your state pension, it comes out about 80,000. Well, that's going to last you at £12,500 a year on your state pension. That's going to last you about 6.4 years. Not enough. Now, the state pension was designed to take at 65, and it was worked out that the average person would last until they're about 75. Well, obviously, with new innovations, people keeping themselves healthier, healthy food, until Bill Gates got into it, and now we're not on such healthy food. That's another story. I don't believe that we should be putting chemical lab-grown meat into production and into supermarkets. But that, as I say, is another story. Take care of your health, you live longer. But the state pension is, in its present form, unsustainable. Now, one of the reasons for that is the amount of people coming into the country that never ever pay into the state pension, and yet they're entitled to, once they reach that age, about £169 a week. Now, it's not the full state pension, but it's still £169 per week. And then they make it up with pension credits and top-ups and everything else. Well, we also know that most of these people that don't pay into the state pension come from places where they've never even heard of a state pension, but as they get older, they come here on boats, they bring over their families and everything else, and they're here illegally, and 78% of them never ever work, so they never pay into the state pensions. You and I are actually paying for these people, the freeloaders I call them, the illegals, other people call them the rubber boat people, but they are freeloaders, simple as that. They hide behind a book that they don't want to do manual labour, they don't want to do office work. Now, that's not all Muslims. There are a lot of Muslims out there that want to pay into society. They want to help others. They want to help themselves as they grow older. But the majority, as I say, 78% of them don't intend to ever work. So they never intend to actually pay into the state pension. They get universal credits that pay into a small amount into the state pension. But basically, it's taking money out of the system. Now, the only way we can stop this is A, stop the boats, deportation of all the illegals that are here, and unfortunately, raise the national insurance to 15%. If we raise it to 15% now, in the next 3 years, we might have a chance that our children and our grandchildren might have a state pension. Now, the age of the state pension, I think, should be fixed permanently at 68 years of age. So you don't get a state pension until you're 68. Now, there's a lot of people that are not going to make that. There's a lot of people that aren't going to make that. But if you pay it in at 15%, that will actually give you an average of around, if you're paying in progressively each year, and the government, obviously, 5% growth, that should last you about 12 to 13 years. Now, these are the figures that I've worked out myself. You can also go and check them. But it then becomes sustainable. If we don't, the government have got really three choices. Either scrap the state pension, in which case there's going to be absolute bloody anarchy, and I will be one of them on the firing lines at the government, believe you me, because no one's going to stop my state pension after paying it for nearly 40 years. The other side of it is what they did in Spain when they ran out of money. They were getting €900 a month, and then the Spanish government couldn't afford it, and they cut that down to €450 a month for a limited period of time. Now, that I also don't think is a good idea. You're putting people in poverty. And a lot of older people these days are actually paying for younger people that are still at home and they're topping up their earnings because earnings haven't kept pace with inflation. There was a video going around that a lady had 2 pints of Guinness, and she said, when the average money or wages per hour were £5.40, you could afford 2 pints of Guinness, literally your hourly rate. Now, here we are, and that was, I think, 2003, 2008, something like that. Now, here we are in 2026, with the average wage going out, hourly rate, £12.51, I think it is, or £12.31. You couldn't afford those 2 pints of Guinness anymore. You could afford 1.5, but you couldn't afford that on your hourly rate. So, this is a prime example that wages haven't kept pace with inflation. Inflation in the food, in petrol, in anything, entertainment, tickets to go to a concert, they've gone astronomical, literally through the roof, and we can't afford it anymore. So going back to the state pension, the only way we can do this is basically pay in more, 15%, raise the age and fix it at 68, and it should never, ever be touched again. 68 is the limit. And as I say, raise it to 15%. And I actually believe it should remain at 35 to 36 years that you have to pay in to get the full state pension. If you only pay in for 20 years, then you get a progressively lower amount. That gives the incentive when you're younger to pay in more. And private pensions don't actually work because a lot of private pensions, people lose money. I did myself. I lost about 19,000 paying into a private pension, which was a total bloody rip-off because for the first 2 years, you're just paying the charges for the finance people that set up a private pension. If you change it more than once a year, you will pay in more. You pay a penalty. So private pension is the biggest bloody rip-off going. A state pension is good. I've got a people's pension one going at the moment, and I find that a very, very good, solid pension provider. And you get bonuses and everything else, and they are very good. So I would say if you're paying into a state pension, you should also get a people's pension and pay in. You don't have to pay in a lot, just a little bit, and it grows quite significantly over time. So this would be two of the ways that we could actually do this to make the state pension last. The other way, as I say, is either you scrap it or the government keep raising the limit and hope people die, which I'll go back to Bill Gates again. Maybe that's the whole idea, to kill off the older people of this world so we don't have to pay out so much in state pension. I mean, it's only a theory, my personal theory, but there's something going on. I mean, COVID was the biggest farce going, and many doctors did warn that between 2 and 5 years, people would just start dropping dead for no reason at all. And bloody hell, how right was that person that came out and said that some 4 years ago now, that COVID would end up killing people. And there are droves of people that are dropping dead from COVID, from this so-called vaccine that was tested. It was never tested. Bill Gates was behind a lot of things. And quite honestly, I think he should be in court. I think they've asked him to go to appear in court in Belgium. I think in his native country, where it is, America, I think he should be held to account and put in prison. This man's killed an awful lot of people. And the sooner we put Bill Gates behind bars, the better the world will be. There's a few other people like that. Sadiq Khan, as soon as he's investigated for corruption in London, I mean, you can't be in charge of about 29 billion without some of it sticking to his dirty little fingers. They call him Sir Rowley, the chief constable, Sir Rowley. God almighty, he's more like a bloody Roundtree wooden top than anything else. I mean, Rowley is just an arse licker, and he needs to go, along with Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, and the whole Labour government. So on the 7th, don't vote Labour. For Christ's sake, don't believe the lies, don't believe the bullshit. Go out and vote Reform. And then when it comes to the election, vote for Restore Britain. Thank you.